The Akatsuki is legendary both in and out of universe. It has become by far the most iconic villainous organization of any anime ever made, with an aesthetic so unique and well crafted that even people who have never watched Naruto before instantly know what an Akatsuki member looks like. They have become an essential part of the Naruto mythos. In every single anime event I've ever gone, the Akatsuki outfit, whoever member it is, was the most cosplayed by a massive amount. And I'm not just talking about Naruto cosplays, I'm talking about any type of cosplay. First because, well, it is kind of easy for you to cosplay an Akatsuki character, you just have to slap on an Akatsuki cloak, and if you want to go the extra mile, you paint your nails, put on the headband and everything. But also because the Akatsuki as a whole, and their characters individually, are so well written and interesting that people are going to cosplay them. And because they look so cool, with the red clouds and the black cloak, that just makes the perfect candidate for a cosplay, especially if you don't have much of a budget. Now, in-universe, the Akatsuki is also iconic because it is composed by extremely powerful rogue ninjas from all nations around the world except for the Cloud Village, I guess you could say. And they have wreaked havoc around the shinobi world, stealing the tail beasts from their former nations, throwing the shinobi world into chaos and unbalancing an order that has been established ever since the founding of the ninja villages. Every single member of the organization is very unique, and you could even say bizarre for the Naruto world standards. They have quirky jutsus that are extremely powerful and memorable, and they are also absolutely intimidating. But you probably knew all this already. In this video, I want to take a look at an interesting topic regarding the Akatsuki, which is why a new Akatsuki would never work again in the Naruto world, both from an in- and out-of-universe perspective, and talk about why the Akatsuki works so well in the Naruto series as it is. And when I talk about a new Akatsuki in the Naruto world, I'm not necessarily saying that a character is hypothetically going to refound the Akatsuki, wear the dark cloak with the red clouds, and try to do the same thing the Akatsuki was trying to do. What I mean by that is, an organization that looks like the Akatsuki and feels like the Akatsuki can never work again in Naruto. Boruto, funnily enough, has committed those two mistakes. First with Shin Uchiha, well, technically that wasn't Boruto, that was like Naruto Shippuden or whatever, when Shin Uchiha was the main villain and he wore an Akatsuki cloak. And then we have the Kara organization in the Boruto series, which is simply garbage. Those don't work, and we're gonna talk about why. To start things off, we have to take a look at how the Akatsuki is organized in terms of their structure. When you take a look at any rival/villainous faction in an anime, or it could even be a movie or a TV show, if said piece of media is well written, you're gonna get a sense of how this organization operates. How's their hierarchy? Who is the boss? Who are the underlings? What's their objective, and other general pieces of information. And obviously this is going to vary a lot depending on what the story is about and what the writer wants to convey. And especially when it is the main villainous organization that you're talking about, you will want to develop their politics, quote unquote. At least enough for the reader or watcher to understand how they operate. Like if you take a look at Star Wars and the Galactic Empire, for example, you understand that there's the Emperor, there's his main enforcer, Darth Vader, who's a guy outside the chain of command that has control over everything else pretty much. And then there are the Moths, the generals, the lieutenants, and then the stormtroopers and very basic troops. It's a massive organization. When it comes to the Akatsuki, however, it is pretty much the opposite. The Akatsuki is a great challenge to the Naruto world, not because of their size and because they're all-encompassing, no, it's because of the quality of their members and how powerful they are individually. And this does a few things for the story and for the audience reading. First, you're going to know that every time a character encounters an Akatsuki member, that's a big deal. It's not like in Star Wars that when a character encounters a stormtrooper, you're like, oh yeah, they're just gonna deal with the stormtrooper very easily and move on. No, if you encounter an Akatsuki member, you are in for a lot of trouble, regardless of who the Akatsuki is. And this really increases the tension in the story when an Akatsuki character is involved. Not just for the audience, but also for the characters within the story itself, because they know facing an Akatsuki member is not a trivial thing. Kishimoto is also extremely clever when introducing the Akatsuki in Naruto Part 1. Up until chapter 140 or so, that's when Itachi and Kisame are introduced, we didn't even know the Akatsuki existed in the Naruto universe. We knew Itachi existed, or at least a brother that Sasuke has that did something really bad and made Sasuke want revenge really hard. But we simply didn't know anything about this organization, and to be fair, neither did many of the characters like Kakashi. Up until Jiraiya tells Kakashi about the Akatsuki and what they're up to, he didn't know about them. Now, introducing the Akatsuki through Itachi and Kisame, secondarily, was a great idea because, first of all, we knew about Sasuke's brother. So even if we may not care about this new organization, our interest is immediately piqued by the presence of this character we knew some stuff about and that we were eager to see. Sasuke is the second most important character in the series after all, and up until the Search for Tsunade arc, that's when Itachi shows up, his past was pretty much a mystery. We got a lot of hints along the way, but nothing was really concrete. And now that a character with a Sharingan showed up that looks a lot like Sasuke, it's easy for you to connect the dots, and it's easy for you to become very invested in the story. Kisame as Itachi's duo works really well, not just because they interact in such cool ways later on in Naruto Shippuden, but also because he's one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist, and we've encountered one of those before with Zabuza in the first major arc of the Naruto series. So there's also some connective tissue to Kisame as well. Because let's be real here, if hypothetically, I don't know, Kakuzu and Hidan showed up to the Leaf Village as these robed characters with red clouds around their vests, sure, the look could be impactful, which I'm gonna talk a little bit about later, but we don't really know much about these two characters, and if you're trying to introduce this new faction that's supposed to be extremely powerful and dangerous, it's better for you to do with a character we are interested to see and that already has some mystique built around him. Now, the next genius thing that Kishimoto does regarding the Akatsuki is how he connects the organization to Orochimaru. Because before the Akatsuki shows up, who is the big bad evil guy of the Naruto series? Well, it's gonna be Orochimaru. Yes, he was not the main antagonist of the Chunin exams in the Konoha Crush arc. That was Gaara. He was the primary antagonist because he was the main antagonist to our main characters. Sure, the main characters have an encounter with Orochimaru that's very important for the story, but the Konoha Crush arc ends with Sasuke and then Naruto fighting Gaara, and Orochimaru fighting Hiruzen, who is the Hokage and an important figure for the world and the story, but he's not one of the main characters. So Orochimaru is a secondary antagonist to the Chunin exams and the Konoha Crush arc, albeit a very important one that's essentially moving the pieces behind the scenes, and then obviously participating in the great Konoha Crush attempt. But if you're going to pick who is the strongest of the two, and even I guess you could say the most intimidating of the two, even though Gaara is very intimidating, that's going to be Orochimaru because he killed the Hokage, the leader of the village. He brought people back from the dead, the first and the second Hokage. He is swapping bodies. He is at the level of a Kage. And now these two new guys show up, Itachi and Kisame, and they are from this organization you've never heard about before. But then Jiraiya tells something very important to Kakashi. He tells Kakashi that Orochimaru used to be a member of this organization. And by the way Jiraiya phrases that, it doesn't feel like Orochimaru was the strongest member of said organization. Much in the contrary, it feels like he was just another member of them. Which is very much true when we see how the other characters look like in Naruto Shippuden. Yeah, Orochimaru wasn't even close to being the strongest Akatsuki member. But now that we dealt, quote-unquote, with Orochimaru in the Konoha Crush arc, even though Orochimaru wasn't killed, we get slapped with this new piece of information that there is this massively powerful organization with 10 characters that are as powerful as Orochimaru, if not more. And, to top all that, they are all after Naruto and the Nine Tails. So linking Orochimaru, the guy we thought was like the pinnacle of evil strength in the Naruto universe, to this new organization and say, yeah, no, actually, Orochimaru's not even close. These other guys here are insane, and they're all after Naruto. We're gonna have to deal with all of them. That builds up a lot of hype for the series. And tension as well, because Naruto's just a little kid there. He has absolutely no chance. I mean, yeah, he can get a pretty damn massive boost with the Ninetales' chakra, even in Naruto Part 1, but that wasn't even close to being able to do anything against Orochimaru, which he actually used the Ninetales' chakra against him in the Forest of Death. And now there are 10 of these guys after him. That's bad news, but it's great for the story. And obviously the way Kishimoto crafts the character design for the Akatsuki members is just absolutely genius. It's simple, but so effective and iconic. The contrast of the red clouds and the black cloak, combined with the crossed over headband, and even the painted nails, it gives the Akatsuki this very unique aesthetic that you're just not going to forget. It makes them so special in and out of universe, and you're not going to mistake an Akatsuki character for anybody else. And this is Kishimoto working to the pinnacle of his design capabilities because, yeah, the Akatsuki design, if you take a look at it, it's really simple. It's nothing too elaborate, but it works so well. It's simple and yet it's amazing. And that's probably the hardest thing for you to achieve in any area of expertise, but when it comes to drawing and character design, it's even more impressive. Because yeah, Guts' armor looks amazing, but it is kind of over-designed. It's gonna be difficult for you to replicate several times, and even though it looks great and iconic, it's not exactly the most simple thing. Even from an audience perspective, when you're looking at this thing, it's so intricate, you're like, okay, I'm almost getting lost here. But when it comes to the Akatsuki design, it is so clean, simple, and effective. When Itachi and Kisame are standing overlooking the Leaf Village, the silhouette of those two characters looks so intimidating and menacing. And yeah, I guess you could say they look really regular and standard. It's just the red clouds that give them this very unique design, which I guess you could say is true, but that's the brilliance of it, right? By adding those clouds, you completely change how those characters feel, because during the war arc, when many of the Akatsuki characters are revived by Rina Tensei, they are brought back with cloaks, but they're not the Akatsuki cloaks, they're just like plain brown cloaks. And yeah, they look absolutely bland with that new design because they lack the clouds and just the aura the Akatsuki cloak gave to them. I honestly don't know why Kishimoto didn't just give them the Akatsuki cloaks when they were Edo Tenseis. I guess he wanted to quote-unquote forget about the Akatsuki and say, yeah, the Akatsuki is dead now, we're moving on to a new stage in the war arc. But I don't know, all the other characters that were revived by Edo Tensei were wearing their most iconic clothes. The Akatsuki members are the only exceptions to that. And this is the first thing you simply cannot replicate anymore. Doing another Akatsuki in the Naruto universe is going to be futile from an aesthetic perspective because you're not going to be able to match the aesthetic the Akatsuki had. When you create this type of villainous organization that doesn't have a whole lot of members, but they all have to be powerful and unique, you have to give them a very nice design. Now, some anime go the route of giving each character of the organization a different design, like the Phantom Troop in Hunter x Hunter, or even the Seven Deadly Sins in Fullmetal Alchemist. They do have a few recurring themes in their character designs, however, they are not standardized like the Akatsuki is. And because the Akatsuki is standardized, another organization that becomes standardized like that when it comes to their aesthetic is just not going to make it. We can look at Kara and Boruto. It doesn't work. They wear very similar clothes, but they are completely bland look-wise. Now, if you were to do a new organization that's like the Akatsuki in the Naruto world, like Kara is, I guess, you could do the route of making them have different character designs like the others I've mentioned from other anime. And if those characters had a design that was interesting enough individually speaking and not standardized, then yeah, aesthetically they could work. But you're simply never going to match the presence an Akatsuki member had in the Naruto universe. And when Shin Uchiha wore the Akatsuki cloak because reasons that just felt pathetic, because no, you're not an Akatsuki, shut up. The Naruto Shinden arc is not great, it's actually pretty damn bad. And slapping the Akatsuki cloak on the main antagonist of the arc was just a callback. Oh, remember the Akatsuki? They were really cool, weren't they? This guy here, he's like the new Akatsuki or whatever. Remember the cloak? It looked nice. No, that was just bad. I mean, if you take that arc and compare it to the rest of Boruto, that's much better than anything Boruto's ever made, because that was at least made by Kishimoto and drawn by him and written by him, so it was obviously better, but it wasn't very good. Shin, quote-unquote, Uchiha just feels like a copycat with a very boring jutsu. He controls kunais with his Mangekyo Sharingan, oh my god. And not a great villain whatsoever. I don't think this is a hot take. I don't think anyone really likes Shin Uchiha. Even Boruto fans who like the Otsutsuki garbage don't like him. So standardizing a new organization with the same clothing is not going to work, and just copying the Akatsuki's cloak is gonna feel pathetic. Like, you are not that guy, dude. Don't wear that cloak, it doesn't belong to you. But even if you make the characters of a new quote-unquote Akatsuki organization in the Naruto universe wear different clothes, And even if they are nice designs, you cannot escape the second problem with having an organization that is similar to the Akatsuki in the Naruto world. And that problem is, well, essentially all the rest that has to do with the Akatsuki. Let me explain. As I said, the Akatsuki is not a big organization. It has 10 members. Well, most of the time, it's not even 10 members because they're always like out of 1 or 2, and then when they come and die, the Akatsuki shrinks and shrinks until it's only Obito left. But even when they had 10 members, they were peers, essentially. Yes, there was the leader, Pain, and there was the guy manipulating the leader, which was Obito. But when it comes to the characters themselves, even when it comes to Pain, they were at a very similar tier when it comes to their hierarchy in the organization. Yes, Hidan was the newest guy in the Akatsuki, and some of the Akatsuki members didn't respect him very much, but that had a lot more to do with his personality than with his level of seniority. Pain may coordinate the movements of the Akatsuki and give out commands, but it always feels like the Akatsuki members have a lot of freedom to do kinda what they want. Also, the Akatsuki characters don't really have people working under them, with a few exceptions. Sasori has people working for him as a spy, people that he controls, and I guess Orochimaru would have people that worked under him when he was in the Akatsuki, but importantly, those people that work under them are not Akatsuki members. And well, yeah, I guess the Rain Village is under Pain too, because he's kind of like the Kage of the village. Then again, yeah, they are not Akatsuki members. Only Konan, who is another member of the Rain Village, is an Akatsuki member, but that's okay because she's one of the 10. And yes, there are different dynamics between the Akatsuki duos. Some duos have a clear leader, like the Itachi Kisame duo. The leader is obviously Itachi. For the Kakuzu Hidan duo, the leader is Kakuzu. For the Pain Konan duo, the leader is Pain. But when it comes to the Sasori Deidara duo, it doesn't feel like either of them are the leader. They're like just peers. And when it comes to the Deidara Tobi duo, yeah, Deidara's the leader, but Tobi's just pretending he's a goofball. And because there's such few members in the Akatsuki, and they don't really have this hierarchy, there aren't any politics within the organization. Yeah, obviously each Akatsuki character has a different goal in mind, even when it comes to the great goal of the organization as a whole, but the culture of the organization is going to arise from the relationships the characters have between each other, and not the seniority or the rank they have from each other. It's very different from an empire-like organization in a fictional story, when there's a clear hierarchy and you have to obey a superior. And this more loose structure works well for what Kishimoto is trying to do, both in and out of universe. Out of universe, it is very easy for the audience to follow what's going on with the Akatsuki. First, because there aren't a lot of members, and the more Kishimoto reveals the members, the more mysteries are solved, because at the very end of Naruto Part 1, we get a glimpse of that Akatsuki hologram that we had never seen before. So, oh, okay, so these are all the Akatsuki members. These are the guys who are like Orochimaru level plus. We're very curious to see what they're capable of and what they even look like. So whenever there's a new arc in Naruto Shippuden depicting a new Akatsuki duo, we're excited about, oh, okay, we're finding out more about the Akatsuki. But the mystery and intrigue revolving the Akatsuki in Naruto Shippuden has much more to do about who those characters truly are. Even Pain himself, the leader of the Akatsuki, was a great mystery up until he was revealed. Some people thought Pain, back in Naruto Part 1, was actually Minato, that Minato, the 4th Hokage, was still alive and guiding this evil organization. And that's because Pain's hair kind of looks like Naruto's hair. That's the only thing they were going off of. Even though Minato's hair never looked like Naruto's hair. But that obviously builds up the mystery, intrigue, and tension in the narrative. It makes you want to keep on reading. And when all the Akatsuki members are revealed, the audience is never going to be confused about, oh, who's who? Oh, there are too many characters, I can't keep up. No, it's just 10 members of the Akatsuki. Like, if I ask a very casual Naruto fan to name every single Akatsuki member, they're probably gonna do pretty well. And you guys watching, I'm pretty sure pretty much every single one of you is going to name every single Akatsuki member perfectly. And that's because even though they wear the same cloak, and look similar in that regard, their personalities and abilities are so different, it's very difficult for you to mistake them. This also streamlines the relationships within the organization itself. We understand which characters like each other, which characters don't really care for each other. The dynamics are easy, understandable, and that's really what Kishimoto wants, because he's never been much of a political writer. And when I say political writer, I'm talking about him writing politics within his universe. I'm not saying he's trying to insert politics within the story. Because it seems like whenever there's a chance for Kishimoto to develop the politics of the Naruto world and develop that world building, he kinda doesn't take that opportunity because I guess he doesn't really care too much about it. Or maybe the editors told him, yeah, no, just don't worry about this, move forward, just imply things, it's fine. And because the Akatsuki has this very tight structure, you really understand well how the characters are going to interact with each other, why they're doing the things they're doing when they interact, and you can also keep up very well with their motivations. Now, in-universe, it also makes absolute sense for the Akatsuki to be a pretty small organization when it comes to their sheer numbers. And that's because of their inherent objective. They have to capture the tail beasts. They're essentially hunting nukes in the Naruto world. If there was an organization in the real world trying to capture nukes from nations around the globe, I assure you they wouldn't be treated very kindly, but if they were to do so, they would have to be extremely powerful. And they would also have to act from the shadows. It couldn't be a massive army because that would be way too conspicuous. No, you'd have to make sure they were the most capable people for the job as possible and in a small quantity. That's exactly what the Akatsuki is. If Pain assembled a massive army, but let's say Chunin level ninjas, it wouldn't be nearly as effective. Because the Akatsuki needs to be composed of ninjas who are capable of fighting and defeating tail beasts handily. You cannot lose members every time you try to capture a tail beast. That's not good for your organization. It's going to make you weaker. So the average Akatsuki member has to be significantly more powerful than the average tail beast. And let's be real, there aren't that many people around the Naruto universe, especially rogue ninjas. Yes, most Kage are gonna be able to spar against a tail beast depending on how many tails it has, but the Kages are not going to join an evil organization like the Akatsuki, obviously. And I know when there's a sequel series, it's very tempting for you to try and emulate what happened before and worked well. The Akatsuki is obviously an example of something that happened in the Naruto story that worked extremely well, so let me just do an Akatsuki 2.0 here. Yeah, the objective of the organization may not be the same, but they're gonna be coded the same way. It's going to be this organization of a few extremely powerful individuals that have this peer-like relationship with each other, acting together towards a common goal, but also with different motivations. Now, first of all, this is not gonna work because it's very difficult for you to recreate the type of characters that were part of the Akatsuki. First, the more superficial aspects. The powers those characters had are so interesting and unique. You're going to struggle to find something that makes so much sense thematically, that looks so good, and that makes sense within the universe and its established rules. I know we are used to those characters at this point, but take a look at Kakuzu's jutsus, for example, or Deidara's. They are so weird and different than anything else you've ever seen before in the Naruto series and that you'll ever see again, and yet they make so much sense for the characters themselves and for the Naruto world as a whole. Okay, yeah, I can see this happening in this world. It's weird, but it's a very nice way for you to push the limits of your power system. It's going to be very difficult for you to emulate those things, especially because, well, if you're doing an Akatsuki 2.0, I guess you have to do new powers. And these new characters for this new Akatsuki have to be much more powerful than the original Akatsuki, so they're just gonna be extremely OP, and, well, the powers we have to craft for them will have to be much more powerful than the Akatsuki's powers, but that's gonna break the entire universe. And that's kind of what Boruto does. They try to make them seem so powerful, but like Jigen, the leader of Kara, his power is to shrink and unshrink things. And they try to paint that as this extremely, massively powerful ability. But first of all, well, any ability you want to be extremely powerful will be extremely powerful. It's just how you write it. And second, it looks absolutely lackluster, boring, and dull. So the most powerful character you have, the character that's going to eventually become Jigen, his ability is to shrink and shrink things. That's the ability. Compare that to literally any Akatsuki and the aesthetic of their jutsus. Take a look at Konan, for example. The way she turns into paper, the way her jutsu looks, her paper wings, the way she moves around. And she's just one of the Akatsuki characters, and not even the main one. Take a look at that other Kara character, Delta. Her power is to absorb ninjutsu with her eyes, something that the Preta Path was doing way before her. And when it comes to the Preta Path, that's just one of the 6 paths of pain, which all had very different, unique, and powerful abilities that was very interesting and thematic. And because of the nature of said organization, because each member needs to be extremely powerful, they need to have OP abilities. And because you have to come up with new abilities that are stronger than the Akatsuki's abilities, the likelihood of you messing up things that are going to break your story is tremendous. Another thing that you're not going to replicate with an Akatsuki 2.0 is the chemistry the characters of the Akatsuki had between each other. Every single Akatsuki duo had amazing levels of chemistry when interacting with each other, and they complemented each other very well. Like Deidara and Sasori, the guy who thought art was the glimpse of an explosion against the guy who thought art was eternity, when they were debating about art sitting on top of Gaara's corpse. Deidara and Tobi, I don't have to mention that one, I think. Everyone loves Deidara and Tobi. Itachi and Kisame. Kakuzu and Hidan also had very good chemistry. I would say that Pain and Konan were probably the ones with the least chemistry when it came to the duos. And that's probably because Konan was mostly a very cold and distant character in her Akatsuki time. She was very different when she was younger, being more cheerful, but obviously because what happened to her, she's a different person. And she starts to become that person again after Naruto talking to Jutsu's Nagato, but I wouldn't even say their chemistry is bad, it's just that it's not as great as the other duos. Even Zetsu has some very interesting interactions with a lot of the Akatsuki members. Zetsu, a character I detest, well, mostly because of what Black Zetsu does to Madara and Kaguya showing up and everything, ruining the Naruto series at the end. But when Zetsu was just the intel guy of the Akatsuki, the guy who looked around for information and ate the bodies of guys that the Akatsuki characters killed, he was pretty good, actually. Deidara had some very good interactions with Kisame, Itachi, his hatred of the Sharingan and how he thought himself inferior but not wanting to admit that his art was inferior to the Sharingan, which eventually led to his demise against Sasuke when he was trying to beat the Sharingan with his art. So writing characters that are that deep and that interact with each other so well like the Akatsuki characters did, it's just not going to be possible. You cannot catch lightning in a bottle twice. And it's really going to feel like, for the reader, that you're trying to emulate something that worked well before, but you're just trying to say, yeah, no, trust me, bro, it's gonna be like the Akatsuki. Remember the Akatsuki? They were really cool, weren't they? While not really believing that what you're writing is worthwhile. You have to support yourself with what came before, and that's not a great way for you to write a sequel. And in universe, it's also hard for you to justify this new organization that's gonna feel like the Akatsuki, an organization of extremely powerful individuals that's not big and that's working mostly from the shadows. What's really gonna be their objective after Naruto created this new peaceful world after the end of the Fourth Great Ninja War? It's not the type of organization you're going to use to challenge the characters in this new status quo. Well, first because challenging Naruto and Sasuke after their power-ups in the war is kinda stupid, because you're going to escalate the power level so much, the power creep's gonna get absolutely out of hand, and you're gonna have to make Naruto and Sasuke seem like buffoons in order for the story to feel like it has any stakes. So, putting characters in an organization that are going to challenge Naruto and Sasuke, for instance, in terms of their sheer strength is absurd. It would be far better for this new villain organization to be something else entirely. Distancing itself from the Akatsuki, trying to do something new, because the Akatsuki has already been done. You cannot do it better. And if you cannot do it better, even if you do it well, it's still gonna be compared to the Akatsuki when you do something that's very similar to it. And because it's not gonna be as good as what came before, it's gonna feel disappointing regardless. So you might as well try something new. But aliens is not the answer. A group of albino alien gods is definitely worse than an Akatsuki 2.0, okay? Just to make that clear. Click on the video on your screen to see me ranking the Akatsuki from weakest to strongest. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Definitely ring notifications as well. Those are very helpful and it only takes you 5 seconds to do them all. Please do, it really helps. Thank you so much for watching.